Welcome to the 36th episode of the Student Recap Podcast.
Super Sports 2. Today, I have another one of my friends, Andrew Milwee, with me here. So, to start off with, who are you?
Well, as Rafa said, my name is Andrew Milwee. I'm a freshman at the John Cooper School, and I'm passionate about topics such as physics, and I enjoy a lot of sports such as football and basketball.
So, this moves on to the topic of our discussion. Why are you an athlete? You're primarily in basketball and football, but why are you involved in those sports?
Well, I feel like it's a good way to decompress. Whenever you play a sport or something, it's kind of like you get two things out of it. One, if you are on a good team, which sometimes you are and sometimes you aren't, you can make friends around you, and also you get a good physical aspect out of it too. So while playing video games, you can have good friends. With sports, you also have good friends, and you can get a good shape of your body that can hopefully encourage you to get a better life, fitly, and also just emotionally too.
Yeah, so you mentioned about the life aspect, and I really agree that sports can kind of improve your outlook and how you are, because you're getting in shape, but it also helps you with excelling in other areas. Because of sports, you have to have time management for your other activities. So with school, for example, and you have sports as well, then you have to learn how to do your homework on time. And it's not just in the physical aspect, but in the academic aspect that sports can help you. But so you're on the school team, but also an outside of school basketball team, correct?
Yes, I do. AAU is what it's called outside.
So, how are they different, AAU, from the school team?
Well, firstly, I'll say, and this isn't necessarily because it's school, but just based off of what team you are, I feel like my out-of-school team has a much better social connection with each other than my school team. And I've said it before, but social connections are huge on teams, because you will, most likely, you're going to have either everyone is really well connected or everyone is competing for the top spot. And that's kind of the unfortunate thing about sports. Yes, you want to be friends and have fun with each other, but you also have to realize some people are trying to take this to the next level of college or pro. And this is another great thing about sports. If you get really, really good at it, you can end up making millions of dollars.
So you mentioned the team dynamic. It's very important for a team to have fluidity during the game, because if they're all rigid and all the players are independently moving, then you're not going to score those points. And I mean, if you don't have those good social connections, then you're not going to have those interactions that improve the way the team plays. Often, many teams, even in the major leagues, they have trouble when they have players that are getting transferred from other teams, making them work with the current team, because they're just not associated with the community that they're coming into. And it's really important to play the game, not just for the fun of it. Well, no, not just for getting to that next level, but for the fun of it.
I agree with that. I think this breaks a really good quote. It's, are you working to enjoy your life, or are you living as you're working? Because there's a really good short film. It's called Full Time. It really demonstrates this principle really well. I recommend you check it out.
So, you mentioned working and your life. Sometimes sports can be a joy for people, but sometimes when you're really focused on getting to that next level, you don't really see the pure essence of sports, because yes, you're trying to get to that next level, but when your focus shifts away from having fun and doing the sport just for the love of it, then you're not really doing the sport. Would you agree?
Yes, and I actually do have an example of, I did this myself. So, 7th, 8th grade year, I was focused on how am I going to be better than everyone else on my team. Because at the time, I had just gotten, I didn't make the team in 6th grade. But 6th to 7th grade, I worked really, really hard to try to make that team. However, stopping there would have only put me in 8th grade year to go down even more. So what I had to do is I had to keep working and grinding. But while I was doing that, I didn't take in the part of, hey, enjoy what I'm actually doing. If I'm just working here, I'm wasting all this time that could be so valuable.
Yeah, I actually have an analogy from somebody in track. So one of our athletes, he was overworking himself because he was trying to beat the competition for the future meets. But then this caused him to have an injury. And often in sports, people train too much that they get injuries and then they lose everything. And frankly, sometimes you have to see that even though you can be better than other people, what are the risks and other consequences that are going to happen in order to get there?
Yeah, real quick, I just want to make a quick warning here. I'm not trying to say you shouldn't work to be better than other people. Mm-hmm. Competition's a huge important factor, and without it, we wouldn't have, like, players today are way better than they were back then.
Yes. I actually have an example of this. So, in the 1900s, there were maybe 5 people who could break a 4-minute mile. But now that's basically a standard for Olympic runners. And frankly, many people run many seconds under a 4-minute mile in the Olympics.
Yeah, that could be of new technology, but I think it also does come with people as a species are getting better and better at what we do. Like, if you remember the fastest man in the world, Usain Bolt, his record is very, very difficult to get broken. I think he ran, it was like a
9.56.
9.56. The closest, or like the guy that just ran it, what did he get? Like first in the Olympics.
Oh, first in the Olympics, probably like a 9.72.
See, and 0.3 seconds off is still huge. It's very hard to get to where we are today.
Yeah, and so for the other sports that you do, we've primarily been talking about you with basketball and mine with running. But how has football shaped, like, your identity?
So, football is a unique sport. And I think that's because, while most sports, you have, 20 games a year, we'll say that. Except track meets are a little bit different.
Yes,
but
it's less.
For football, you have about 10 games to give an opportunity of why am I the best and why is my team great. The team part is a huge factor in football. Because, I'm a lineman, for example. If I mess up one block, my whole line is going to get confused on what to do. Quarterback will get sacked, and he might get injured and be out for the season after that. So it's like our coach for the football team has a great quote. If one fails, we all fail. So, and also there's the no I in team thing. So you need to remember I'm working to get better, but you have to remember the reason you're working to get better, to make your team better so y'all can shine.
Yeah, and as part of the line, so that defense, without one person putting in their full effort, the entire team loses that motivation. And we have this in a lot of different sports where if a few people aren't motivated, the entire team gets demotivated and it lessens their performance. A lot of the parts of performance in all sports are connected to, being mentally in the moment. If you're not there on the field or there on the track, you're not going to perform at your best. And if you get distracted in all of these other things, then you're not going to be able to, for example, rush 20 yards.
Yeah. I really think that does make a huge impact.
So, how do you think that sports have shaped you as a person and made you better than you were before?
I have learned many, many lessons through sports. One lesson I learned is own up to your screw up. When you screw up, don't try to be like, bro, it was the other person's fault. Because your teammates might think that, but I've learned many times your coaches have different opinions. And while your teammates' decisions impact how you feel, coaches' depictions of your actions depend on what happens to you. So make sure you're always doing the right thing, even if other people aren't necessarily thinking you are.
And also, when you lie and say, oh yeah, it was the other person, well, you're breaking the trust and breaking, the team spirit. And that really breaks down teams sometimes, because if there's infighting and you're still trying to defeat the opposing team, well, you're not going to be able to win because people aren't just being collective. And I feel like sports make you a better person, not just in that sense that you have those lessons, but they make you a better person because you're more capable. Because for football, for example, you're stronger and you're able to help out with more tasks. Let's say you're at the house and you need to lift some boxes from the attic. Well, that helps you physically. So would you like to go into that side of sports?
Yes. Physical aspects do have a huge part. I talked a little bit about it in the beginning, but I'll elaborate on it now. So, football and basketball, for example, they have a lot of similarities in what they do. They are both physical sports. I would say football's more of a violent sport, and I don't mean that in a threatening way, but almost you have to hit the other person.
Yes.
Basketball, this is what a lot of people don't realize. It is a physical sport. You're like trying to push the other person out of the way. You're trying to get the rebound. You jump. It takes a lot of stamina, a lot of energy, and a lot of muscle to do it. Football, in my position at least, it honestly doesn't take as much stamina as basketball, but I feel like it takes a lot more strength because you are propped up on 2 feet and you're trying to keep a guy that weighs 300 pounds away from you. And all this strength transfers to the outside world where like yes, I'm 6'4", so I can get things off of shelves. But like if there's a heavy box on a shelf, I can pick it up and get it off.
Okay, so with the physicality, right, I feel like hockey needs to be separated from the violence that's in football because hockey is literally you play the game and then when somebody gets angry, they start like hitting you or fighting you. But football, it's more violent within the game because hockey gets out of hand. Sometimes football is more contained, would you say?
See, I don't want to mention a lot on that because I can't say I've really watched hockey. I've heard like people get in fights and all this stuff, but I really haven't had a chance to see, are they just doing this for the show? Are they really getting angry at each other? And if they are getting angry at each other, that's just kind of sad. It's like a sport kind of fading away because hockey is supposed to be a game where, yes, it's physical, but the object of the game is to get a puck and a goal. Just like in football, it's to either put the ball in the end zone or put it through an upright. However, when you change the goal of the game of, hey, let's show off to the crowd, let's do all this cool stuff, and let's get in big fights. Some people, like people who actually don't play the game, like me, for example, I just heard about the fights. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Haha, that's funny. But the people that are actually invested in that sport and spent their time and energy no longer can use it anymore.
Yeah, and that correlates to how the coaches are part of the team. Because even though they are external, they're not actually in the game, they're the ones who are training you, who are making you better. They may be on the sidelines, but they're the ones who are giving you those routines that make you a better player. For example, my coach for cross country and track, Coach Donor, he's very, very committed to the team, and he comes to run pretty much, let's say, 320 days a year. He's there for us every day, showing us what we need to do in our workouts and how to fix our form. And I feel like coaches are the backbone of sports, even if the athletes are the ones playing.
Yes, actually with football, I would argue the coach is part of the team, and their decisions they make impact us greatly. Like our offensive coordinator, for example, if he makes a wrong play decision, he could get our quarterback out for the season, or he could fumble the ball and we'd lose a huge important game we'd have to win. Or our defensive coordinator, if he made one little slip up and called us to go right instead of going left, and they just ran the ball out and killed us, I mean, that could have lost us the whole game right there.
Now, lastly, how do you think that sports build a sense of community by allowing you to see different people from like a bunch of different interests all like come together and play one game?
I would say, this might be a little weird, but I say it gives you a chance to make a mistake. Like, whenever you are in football or basketball, you're able to make mistakes. Like, I'm not talking about, like, the physical side of, like, hey, you do something in, like, AAU is my outside of school league.
Yeah.
But, so you don't make that same mistake in the inside of school league. I'm talking about, like, social things. Like, whenever you're communicating on the O-line with somebody, like, hey, look at that guy over there. You learn how to communicate with someone effectively, which it kind of sounds really weird, but I've realized it kind of trained me better. And then one huge thing for me is around in 7th grade, I wasn't really aware of the decisions I was making. And through 8th grade and 9th grade, I've become way more aware of the decisions I made through football and basketball.
Yeah, and that like effectiveness of communication, for example, like when you're on the track team and you don't see anybody like supporting you during the race, well, the community isn't showing up for you and you feel kind of bad. But then when you see people shouting and screaming, even though that might not be the most normal way to communicate, they're being effective at supporting you. And as a team, if you don't have your members being positive, then it really detracts the energy from the game.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And I would also like to argue the contrary also happens. You don't see anyone looking at you. Sometimes you'll get an anger.
Oh, yeah.
That anger can either be controlled and used for good or non-controlled and can actually end up being worse. Like, we're going to use the football analogy again. One of my friends got really mad, and he ended up controlling that anger and absolutely destroyed the guy in front of him. But another one, when he got angry, he was so angry he accidentally missed the block and he got rocked and got slammed into the ground.
Yeah, especially for running. So during the workout, sometimes I get angry because I'm not hitting the times, and then I just like fly for the next set, and it's just like the anger was used positively, but I don't think it was specifically anger. It was more frustration, because anger, I feel like, is when you're lashing out at somebody, but frustration lets you build up from your mistakes.
Yeah. There's a really good quote I want to use here. It's from, actually, one of my friends came up with it. His name was Jose Paez. And he said, this was at the first game of our football season. We just went into a much higher division, and no one really expected us to do good. It was, I bet, watch this. It was like, all those people thinking you're going to fail, I bet, watch this. And I wouldn't say we had a good season, but we were never once doubting that we were a family.
Yeah, if you ever doubt yourself, that's only going to like lessen your performance. But when you have that team spirit that allows you to do strong, even if you might not have the best performance in terms of points or games won, it really brings together the people who play the sport and exemplifies what a person playing that sport should be like.
Completely agree with that.
Thank you for listening to the 33rd episode of the Student Recap Podcast.